I've set this band up so that the goals are different than probably almost every other band. I'm not looking to get signed by a label. I don't want a label telling me what to do or telling me this is who's going to play guitar, here's who's producing, here's what's going to be on the cover. I want to do what I want to do.
Between the Grooves is hosted by James Curtis, music director and morning man in the Greater Toronto Area on Joy Radio, and Aisha Woods, Grammy-nominated singer, songwriter, and musician. Together, they talk with artists and industry insiders to discover our connection between music and faith. You can connect with us on Facebook or Twitter at Between Grooves. Now, here's James and Aisha.
Aisha, you're back!
I know. I missed you.
We missed you last week.
I really did.
Yeah. So glad you're back, and so looking forward to this conversation. This week, episode 262 of Between the Grooves. Sure, look at music, ministry, and everything in between with today's top Christian artists. And today, it's a Canadian artist who, kind of an ex-radio guy, still doing radio. He's been very instrumental in Christian radio in Canada. He's also managed. Really cool. Yeah, he's also managed bands. He's promoted artists, still promotes artists, and he just decided. One of his bucket list goals was to be in a rock band. And so it's nice when you have a goal or a vision or something you want to achieve in life. And it's nice when you get an opportunity to do that. And he's kind of semi-retired now, but he decided, you know what? I'm just going to go and do it. And so it's been a passion of his and one of the things he's wanted to do. And so he's doing it. He's not letting anything stop him. So.
That's wonderful. And just like you said, it's a great thing when you're able to do those things that you've kind of had as bucket list items. Have you ever seen that movie, by the way? The Bucket List?
Yes.
With Morgan Freeman and
that's a
Jack
classic.
Nicholson.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So I wonder if our conversation will resemble anything from that movie.
Well, maybe we'll invite Morgan to be on the show as well. Oh, sorry, he couldn't make it. Yeah, that would be great. Can he sing? That's the question. Scott Jackson is our guest on Between the Grooves this week. Let's get to that conversation.
All right.
Hi, welcome to you.
Welcome to you. How you doing, Scott?
It's all under control.
It's all under control.
Yep.
So the last time we had you on Between the Grooves, I guess was a couple of years ago, and you were just launching, I'll call it a pet project called The Eighth Line. Your band, kind of a semi-retirement project, I guess?
Yeah.
How's it going?
Good.
See?
Is this happening now? Are we happening now?
We're happening now. You know what's really funny? Is I warned Aisha ahead of time that when you chat with an ex-radio guy, expect shorter responses than most people.
That's
because
to the point.
Well, because you're so used to saying things in a very short span of time. You have to on the radio, right? And so that's Scott for you.
Yeah, all of my answers will be like in 30 seconds.
Right.
Oh, my goodness. How did the Eighth Line get kicked off, Scott?
Well, it was a bucket list thing. I've been in radio for 45 years, and in my bucket list was always to be a rock star and go in and record a song. But I'm not really a singer, so that's why I went into radio. And so the bucket list thing came along because I had time and I had the means to do it. So I called up my friend Andy Horrocks in Kitchener and said, I want to record one song. Can you record me? And we did, and it was so much fun. It led to a full album, and then things just got out of control.
That's awesome.
By out of control.
Out
of control.
Yeah.
Like what is out of control? Because you're not involved as much in radio anymore. So what's out of control? No. Is it because you're doing a lot more than you anticipated?
Oh, yeah, for sure. This is a full-time job for me. Now, I don't mean that it's a 40-hour week. It's probably about a 15 or 20-hour week, but I turn it into a 40-hour week because I don't have anything else to do. So I stretch it out. And
must be nice.
Yeah.
I'm really a manager of an artist more than I am a lead singer. I love managing, organizing details and stuff. So that's what I spend my week doing, is like setting up practices, writing songs, recording, connecting people, looking for fill-in people who called in sick, and then planning a show.
That's cool. Now, do you have any radio expectations for the 8th line coming out of radio?
Yeah, you'd think so. You'd think that I'd be all over radio, but the 8th line is sort of modeled after the Rolling Stones, late 70s. And so because my music tends to sound like it came out in 1978 by design, because that's my era, that's the music that's the sound that I love. When it gets to CCM, they listen to it, and I've had feedback. One guy said, like, "Wow, it really sounds like the Rolling Stones," and I said, "Well, thank you." And he said, "Yeah, 1978." Okay. So I understand that my music isn't going to be played on CCM probably, although some stations are playing it because maybe they feel sorry for me, or maybe they really like it. And
no, they
so
were
I'm
just looking for CanCon.
Oh, yeah, okay. Well, I'm happy to provide.
Exactly.
Yeah.
As far as this different life for you, and you said you stretch it out to 40 hours, has everything gone as planned? Like, given the fact that you have managed bands in the past, and that's obviously helped you in what you do, and you spend a lot of time doing that, have things gone as planned, or have there been things that happened that you didn't expect because you've never really been on the artist side of things? What have you learned in this whole process, and what would you do differently?
Wow, that's like 4 questions.
Yeah, I know. I figure if I ask 4 questions, the answer will be 4 times longer.
It would be yes, 13, no, and I'm not sure.
That was less than 30 seconds.
Well, because I'm a manager, the band has started at a higher level. Like, we're not a garage band because the bands that I've managed are beyond that. So I'm sort of picking up from where I left off with the other recording acts. So like, I know how to find a producer. I know how to get songs on the radio. I know how to market stuff. I know how to find musicians. Like, I know how to do all the connection. So like I could do that in my sleep. That's really easy. So that was a bit of a surprise at how easy that part was. The difficult thing is being a manager and also being a lead singer and also being the music director. That's really mind-crushing to have all that responsibility.
Wow. So now the other bands that you manage, are they Rolling Stones 1978 sounding bands, or you got some other stuff going on?
All of those bands, like there was 7, and I'm not managing any of them anymore. I let 2 of them go. I guess it's been in the middle of COVID. I had a country gospel artist, and I had a CCM artist. And because of COVID, they weren't really doing any shows. And so there was nothing for me to manage. And then because I was kind of amping up my own thing, my direction shifted, my focus shifted on to myself. And I said, I think I've taken you guys as far as I can take you. And now I'm kind of doing it for me.
Cool. Nothing wrong with that.
How many times do you get to, obviously as a manager of your own band, how many times do you get to actually perform and do shows?
The goal is to do 1 full big rock show a month.
Yes,
I have 8 people in the band, and looking after the sound side, like the front of house, that is a challenge because some churches have what they call state-of-the-art equipment, and it's more like Fisher-Price. And so then I have to bring in a sound team. And like, we don't own a PA, we don't own lights, so that means I have to go out and get that. So the good thing is that the sound guy that I'm hiring, he's for me because I'm paying him, rather than somebody from the church who will kind of do whatever they want to do.
Right.
But in you hiring a guy, that's an expense that perhaps you don't have to incur.
It is. Sometimes I'll hire a guy to bring the sound and lights, and sometimes I'll hire the same guy to come and mix on the church PA system. So I'll have photos sent to me of the mixing board and the back of it, and I'll send that to my sound guy, and then he says, "Okay, now I know what I'm in for. I'm going to bring along my own flux. I'm going to bring along a flux capacitor to augment whatever they don't have, and then he can bring it up to speed more or less."
Do you typically bring your own sound guy, or do you actually rely on the sound guy at the church sometimes?
The majority of the time, I will bring a sound guy.
Right. Because he knows what it
That's
needs to
nice.
sound like, and
Sure enough.
he would have a good idea of what you want versus a newbie being on there, and
Yeah, he'll take the direction from me. He's worked with the band before, so he knows what the idiosyncrasies of each of the different musicians is. And the regular church guy, most of them don't really know how to mix. I mean, they know what the
Right.
mixing board is for, and they understand, okay, I want to make sure that I can hear all the instruments, but they don't know that you want to have the vocal ride a little bit above the guitar, and you don't want the drums to be blowing everything apart. And then you want to make
Right.
sure that it's processed, and the microphone's got like really strong processing on it. And most churches don't have any processing. So when I bring a sound guy, they know that they have to put it on 65 milliseconds to get a certain amount of processing and slap back, and so he knows what I want, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, sure enough. Do you play any instruments?
I don't play any musical instruments. I play
Okay.
percussion, like I play cajon and shakers and bells and whistles and all that stuff, but I can't write
Nice.
music. So when I write music, like I'm a lyricist, but when I'm writing the music part, I have to find a guitarist and go, okay, here's how the song goes.
This is what I hear, yeah.
And then
Right.
if it's a good guitarist, then they can chart it out. But that's been one of the surprises, is how few people are able to take me singing and they're able to write down the chords. Like I've only got a couple of guys that can actually do it.
That's cool.
they would be pretty skilled to be able to do something like that too, to kind of hear what you're hearing.
Yeah, I used
Right.
G.I. Home from Anthem for Today. That was a band that I managed, and he was the lead guitarist. So he has his own production studio. So I went to him and I said, okay, here's my song, la 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 la. And he said, okay. And in 5 minutes, he had the whole thing charted, like in Nashville charting. It was amazing, amazing.
Wow. Yeah, that's sweet. That's sweet. Where did the name Eighth Line come from?
The Eighth Line is a concession road that's a couple of streets over from me. It has several meanings. One of them was it was my biking destination when I have a road bike, and when I'm riding around the area, I would always go to the Eighth Line and then turn around and come home. But also the Eighth Line is the entrance or the backstage entrance to Burrells Creek Family Event Park, and it is a venue that large festivals use. It's a huge plot of land, like acres and
Okay.
acres, and so they have major country and rock festivals there. And a couple of years ago, the Rolling Stones played their only show in Canada at that event, which happens to be
Wow.
on the Eighth Line. So it has many
That's
many emotional meanings.
Did you get to walk to that event, or did you bike it, or what did you do?
Yeah, I was going to bike it, and I probably should have, but my wife dropped me off. And then when it was over, this was really cool. When it was over, she said, I'll meet you on Highway 11. And I thought, man, Highway 11 is going to have 80,000 cars on it. But everybody must have been thinking it's going to be packed because they all took the back roads to get out of town. So I'm walking out to Highway 11 in the dark, and there was like nobody there. She picked me up at the side of the road. Boom, no problem.
Nice. Because I know how busy Highway 11 would have been if everybody decided to take that route.
You're familiar, huh?
Yeah, I know exactly where Highway 11 is, absolutely. And it's not a huge highway. It's like only 2 lanes each direction, and it would have been just packed.
Yeah, it's 2 lanes
gosh.
each direction. But did you know that it's the longest road in the world?
Oh, is that part of Yonge Street?
It's part of Yonge Street, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Here you go.
Little trivia
Learn
for you.
something new
Little,
every day.
little geographic
I didn't
trivia.
know that. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Aisha, there's something. What did you get out of this conversation with Scott today? Well, found out about Highway 11. That's great. Scott, going back to doing concerts and whatnot, you mentioned that you're a percussionist. So do you get an opportunity to play percussion while you're performing?
No, I'm not that talented. It's like tapping your head and rubbing your belly. There ain't no way I can sing and remember the lyrics and shake something at the
funny.
same time. No, forget it. I can't do it.
And the band that plays along, you mentioned you've got 8 people in the band with you.
Yeah.
So if I can ask, are they...
a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot. Are they playing live, or are you using tracks at all?
No, there's no tracks. Everybody's live. There's drummer and bass. I have a percussionist who is playing all kinds of crazy stuff, like congas and shakers and vibroslaps and stuff. So he's busy all the time. I have a guitar player and a keyboard player and a male and female backup singer.
And why would you not use tracks? And I say that because with 8 people in the band, there is potential issues where somebody calls in sick or there's personnel changes. I don't see necessarily if you had a guitar player and he's committed to playing with you, but then something comes up in his life and he decides, I'm going to step down because I got this other project I want to work on. So to keep things consistent and the sound consistent, why wouldn't you consider tracks?
Well, if the guitar player he would be my right-hand man. So if my guitar player decided to resign and step down, a track doesn't replace a guitar player because there's nobody on stage.
Yeah.
So I would be. So I'm not a singer that sings along with tracks. I'm a rock artist with a rock band.
But you could have a guitar player on stage playing along with a track if he's not as experienced to get the sound consistent.
I'm okay with tracks if they're just like supplementing and they're adding gang vocals or they're adding a tambourine. We don't do that, but with other bands that I manage, we did have tracks for that reason, just to fill it out a little bit. But I'm not. I don't really believe in having the band in a box. I'm not one of those artists.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you, Scott. I'm actually agreeing with the fact that it's to fill, not to be the band. And that includes worship on a Sunday morning too. Like a lot of churches use tracks, but if it's obvious that is a track and none of the instruments that you hear are physically on the stage, it's like, come on already. Like you're not fooling anybody, right?
I think because the Rolling Stones are one of the models for this band, is they've got about 14 people on stage because they have a horn section and they have extra keyboards and so on. And that fills out the sound. And so I didn't want to be a 4-piece band. I wanted to have a backup singer, somebody that's singing just underneath me to fill things out. And we originally started with 3 guitars, 2 rhythm and 1 lead, plus a bass. And then I had some members change. And so now I have a rhythm guitar who also plays a bit of lead and a keyboard player.
And that's interesting because your style of music is very guitar heavy.
Yeah, most of it is. Some of the new stuff is a little bit different, but yeah, you're right. Most of it is.
What's it been like managing the personnel side of things? You mentioned that you've had personnel changes. So what's that like? Because that would impact on future gigs if you've got something booked and all of a sudden somebody steps down, right?
Well, I had, let's see, I started the band 1 year ago. So it was 1 year ago, May 14th last year was when we did our first official band show. And from that band, I have the drummer and the backup singer, and everybody else is different. So how can I explain this? When I started the vision for the band, I didn't know if I was going to like it. I didn't know if I could sing. So I said to the band, we're going to do 4 shows. And then after 4 shows, we'll decide, I'll let you know if I want to keep doing this. Maybe I'll change my mind. Or you can decide if you want to stay or not. So after the 4th show, I was changing people up because I was just looking for the best fit. In my band, a lot of people live out of town, an hour away. A bunch of them live an hour away. So getting people together for practices is a bit of a challenge. And in the new band that I have, they also live out of town. I was just looking for the best chemistry, and right now the band that I have is better chemistry. They like each other. We talk to each other. It feels really good.
Good. Do your band members write also, or are you primarily the the solo writer or solo writer?
He's the face of the band. The face of the band. He might have a face for radio, but he's the face of the 8th line. Am I right?
Yeah. It's pretty much. People have said, here's Scott Jackson in the 8th line, but I want it to be just the 8th line. But yes, I am the principal songwriter. I have co-writers on many of the songs. But I've written the music, and it's a case where, as I mentioned before, I will go to someone and say, here's how it goes, la 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 la, and they will try to chart it out for me. And sometimes they'll say, what do you think if we were to do this for the bridge? It's like, okay, then I'll give them a couple of points for contributing to it. But I'm really the lyricist and the composer for all of the songs.
Nice.
When you guys are doing gigs, shows, with 8 people in the band, are you actually making any money at this?
No, this is a hobby, and usually you don't make money at your hobbies. So that's definitely the case here. And as a new band, like, everybody has to pay their dues, and so you're playing free shows all the time. So we do at least half the shows we do are free. I'm retired, and so I'm an empty nester. I don't need the money to make the band work. The income. So this is a big expense for me. Like, recording the first album was, I think it was $25,000. Like, I'll never recoup it. Recording the second album was about like 15. Like, I'll never recoup the money. But that's not the reason why I'm doing it. I'm doing this because this is my bucket list. I want to be a rock star. Let's just see where it goes.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the recouping costs on recording, because Aisha, you know very well, there is costs involved in just the recording and the production side of things. Forget doing live shows. But even with live shows, if you have people involved, then there's potential costs if, you're trying to cover their gas and, their time and maybe make some money down the road and stuff. But if it's just what do they call it? It's a project of love.
Yeah.
That's a Christian way of saying it, right?
Some people call it a money pit as well.
Well, it can be. It can be. Like, if you spend $25,000 plus another $15,000 on recording costs, and you're never going to recover that, then you better be having fun at what you're doing.
That's right.
You better be having fun.
Have to have fun. I've set this band up so that the goals are different than probably almost every other band. I'm not looking to get signed by a label. I don't want a label telling me what to do or telling me this is who's going to play guitar, here's who's producing, here's what's going to be on the cover. I want to do what I want to do. I want to record the songs I want to record. I want to play as often or as little as I want to. I don't want to be responsible to anybody else. If there was a guarantee that I was going to make it, and I'm going to be the next Stephen Curtis Chapman or whoever, and that's going to happen for me, and the money's going to be there, well, then I would change my way of doing things. But the chances are so extremely slim that why get your hopes up? You maintain your freedom. Yeah. Why get your hopes up and tell your band, okay, we're hoping we're going to move to Nashville, we're going to open for the Newsboys. Like, the chances of that happening are not at all. So let's just have fun playing the songs. Yeah.
So what's the longevity of the Eighth Line? I mean, you did radio for 40 years. How long is this going to go?
Well, it was only going to be, as I said, a single, and then it turned into an album, and then it was only going to be 4 shows. So now it's I'm just like taking it like month by month. I don't have a deadline. I'm not thinking, okay, we'll try this for 3 years. I'm just doing it, and then we'll see what happens.
And it's not a burden. It's not you're getting tired of it or anything like that?
No. The bug that has bit gets worse with every gig.
Sure enough.
So that's a good thing.
It's like, when's the next one? Yep.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Oh, yeah. Like, the most exciting time for me is the very first song that opens with 2 bars of just the guitar playing like a rock riff, and then I come out and I start singing the first song. Those moments are super, super exciting, and I just can't wait until I get to do it again.
Is there anything else on the bucket list?
I emptied out the bucket list a couple years ago when I went to England and I wanted to walk across Abbey Road, and so that was kind of the final thing. I am really blessed that I've been able to do a lot of traveling, and I've seen a lot of bands. Everybody that I want to see, I've seen. So like, I've had a really great life, and my bucket list is kind of empty. I am putting new things into the bucket, but they're not big things. They're just, it's more like a to-do list.
Right. It's not going to be something that takes over the Eighth Line, as an example.
No, that's right. Like, the Eighth Line is my main thing right now, and like, I don't that's all I do. that's all when we finish with this interview, then I'm going to start planning the practice for this weekend. This is all I do.
There you go.
You know, one of the things that's been on my bucket list for a long time is I would love, I've always wanted to meet Michael Jackson.
Okay, well.
So it never got erased off my bucket list, but, I guess I should.
Well, I had one similar to that. I wanted to say hi to Mick Jagger. I want to be close enough that I can say hi and he says hi. I don't want an interview. I just want hi. And when he was in town for that show that I mentioned a couple of years ago, I thought, okay, I am now working for local media. So if there's ever a time when I can get backstage, this will be it because I'm the local guy. And I did get to go in advance to talk to the production crew, but I didn't get to see anybody in the band. And the big disappointment for me is I've wanted to say hello to Mick Jagger for 40 years. And I thought as he gets older, then the crowds will die down and he'll be more accessible. There won't be all the security and stuff. He'll be playing he'll be playing at the local club and I'll just wait outside and say hi after the show. But obviously that hasn't happened. He's turning 80 years old this July and they're still packing it out. It's crazy. They are packing out arenas with 80,000 people. They haven't had a hit record for 30 years.
Yeah.
And they're still going, and people want to see them. So
the Rolling Stones.
That's kind of given me a lot of motivation to keep going. Just when you think your best years are behind you, as you get older, you think, well, I'm never going to accomplish anything big again. And then he's 80 years old, so that keeps me going. I've got this band thing. I never thought it would happen. You never know what God's going to do next in your life. You just got to keep your eyes open. That
is so true. You've heard the stories of people that I was reading recently about the Colonel from KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Yeah.
And he didn't start that till he was in his 70s or something like that. He was a poor man before that, and then made his millions in his the last few years of his life or whatever. And that's a brand.
Better late than never, right?
Well, yeah, but there's no restriction on age when you want to do anything, right?
You just have to be prepared. Keep your eyes open. Like Stan Lee, the creator of Spider-Man, he had the comic going in Marvel for all those years, but it wasn't until they made the movie that all of a sudden everything blew up. And I don't know how old he was, if he was 75 years old, and all of a sudden the money starts coming in. You never know what's going to happen next in life. You just got to keep your eyes open.
Right.
You've got an anniversary show coming up.
Yeah, the anniversary show is coming up this Saturday. It's the first official show by the band, and we are also releasing our second album on this day. So it's kind of got a dual purpose. The album's called
Congratulations.
The album's called Ice and Elevate, and so we'll release hard CD copies at the show. It's already available online. Spotify's already got a hold of it, but for the collectors who want a CD, they can get it at the show.
What about vinyl?
No, we're not doing vinyl. Listen, this thing is costing me enough money.
I know. And you're talking about the collectors. That's why I'm asking about the vinyl. That's all.
I don't need to lose more money on vinyl.
Right.
Vinyl people say, "Hey, you're going to make some vinyl," and then you make the vinyl, but they don't buy it.
Right.
You're sitting in your kitchen with 100 pieces of vinyl.
You just bring it to every show and sell one or two for the diehards,
I
right?
guess so.
Yeah. This anniversary show, you've got Tuzi opening for you, I understand. She was one of our guests a while back, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah. She's an artist that her producer, Andy Horrocks, and we both use him as a producer. And he contacted me and he said, "Hey, I've got a new artist. Can you help market her?" And so that's what I was doing for her, getting her songs released to Christian radio stations across Canada. And because of that, I just invited her to come and play at the show.
Now, just a little bit of insider information here. Your show, your first anniversary, I guess the first show that you did, your launch, I guess, a year ago, you had a special guest guitarist in the band then, too, didn't you?
Luke Langman, are you referring to him?
No, I'm actually referring to Andy Horrocks again.
Oh, right.
Yeah, he not only was he the producer of the album, you had him as a guitarist in your band, didn't you?
I couldn't have had anybody better because he helped me. Well, he produced it. He helped me write some of the songs. The producer has everything to do with the album, especially with a junior artist like myself. Like, I totally relied on him. So I said, hey, do you want to come and play the show? Thinking that he wouldn't. And he said, yeah, I'd like to do that. And wow, he was standing right to my right. I mean, if I'm Mick, he was my Keith at that show. It was great.
Wow.
He's a great guitarist. I didn't know he had that talent. I mean, I knew he played guitar, but I didn't know he was that talented.
Yeah, he's a lead guitarist, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Scott, thank you very much for hanging with us today.
So enjoyed you.
Yeah, listening to you two, it's kind of like listening to the Howard Stern show, and I can't remember the name of his sidekick. Oh,
I know who you're talking about. I know the lady you're talking about.
Robin Corvers.
That's right, Robin.
So, like, she's in the background, and about every 30 seconds you hear. That's what it kind of feels like right now.
I think the difference is there's no swearing on our show. Thanks, Scott. Take care.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. That was so much fun talking with Scott.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Man, I think I'll probably be laughing later on just about some things from that conversation. If you want to find out more about Scott and the Eighth Line, just put it in a search and find out more about his music and what he's got going on.
Okay, before we go, it's time for some artist advice. This week we hear from Blessing Offer.
If there was one piece of advice I could give to Christian artists, new or old, I would say that the Christian faith belongs not in the bubble of the church, but in the wide open world that is the world, right? Like, salt in a bowl of salt is really bad for you. There's this thing where we think Christian music and faith needs to only exist on our Christian radio stations. Mm-hmm. But, like, who are you reaching? They already know, so I love when my music is on the Kardashians, because that's the world, and we're supposed to be in the world. So I would say, don't be afraid to be in the world as much as you want to be in the church. Like, that's where the world is here. Don't leave them behind for the safety of the bubble.
I like how he said not to be salt in a salt bowl.
Yeah. I like what he said about living in that bubble. Like, how many of us have, and maybe some continue to live in that bubble called the church, where that is everything, your whole life revolves around church, and so that's all you do, and yet you're supposed to go out into the world and let people see Christ in you. Right.
Be salt and light. And so often we end up preaching to the choir.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. Well, thank you to Blessing Offer for that little tidbit of wisdom. And thank you to Scott Jackson for dropping by to chat on Between the Grooves this week. Hope you enjoyed our conversation, and we have many more conversations on Between the Grooves. If you've missed previous episodes, look them up wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to give us a follow on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram.
Thanks for listening to Faith Strong Today's Between the Grooves podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, would you consider sharing it with your friends, rating our podcast, or giving us some love on your socials to your amazing friends and followers will only help us reach more people. We'd also love to hear from you and share your feedback in an upcoming episode. Send your video or written message to Aisha and James on Facebook and Twitter @Between Grooves, or email us anytime, hello@faithstrongtoday.com.